Today we're talking about the lion. I want to start by saying that I love tarot. There's a card in tarot called Strength. In a lot of decks, it shows a woman and a lion, and she's not necessarily fighting him. She's not running away from him. She's right next to the lion, and she has her hands gently around the lion's jaw, and it's like a very calm image. You know, it's not like the lion has been defeated. It's more like he has been, or it has been misunderstood. I have been thinking a lot about that image lately because of my tapestry and because something that my dad wrote. I haven't really talked in depth about my thesis project, and I kind of wanted to start showing the first tapestry that I did that I'm still waiting to finish because I haven't finished. I'm gonna show you the other part of the tapestry. So in the first video that I talked about my tapestry, I talked about the little girl, and you can watch that. I'm gonna link it. In this video, we're gonna talk about the other part, which is the lion. So to talk about tarot, we need to talk about the fact that it was a game. It's kind of like an Europe Western tradition. I know that there's a lot of different cards in the world that are used for a divination, and I'm not saying it's the only one. I'm just saying that the tarot that I read and the tarot that I know comes from an Europe, kind of like an early Europe Western tradition. Initially, it was a game, and then it kind of was turned into a divination tool. The Strength card specifically is one of the major arcana card, and it has a very specific history. So in early tarot decks, they emerged kind of like in the 15th century in Italy, and the Strength was originally called La Forza or Fortitude. And it represented physical courage, endurance, and the strength to overcome obstacles through force. That was the medieval version. So power was a tool for domination. But that image evolved as well as the game, and by the time that the Rider-Waite deck kind of standardized the image in the early 20th century, something in the meaning and in the image shifted. So the lion in the Strength card came to represent kind of like this wild, antisocial energy that should not be violently repressed. So instead of dealing with that power in a very aggressive way, it should be dealt with more of a conscious approach, and the goal was to transform that energy into something that can turn into a noble purpose. So it's kind of like the merge of spirituality and health in like a very balanced way. And that is actually a very completely different idea from the first symbolism of the lion. It's not about defeating the lion. It's not about destroying the lion. And it also talks about us. It's not about destroying whatever makes you wild. It's about how do you transform it? How do you accept it as part of you and transform that? So the woman that appears with the lion is also very gentle with the animal, and it's often sitting next to it or even cuddling the lion. So he hasn't been tamed out of violence. It's kind of like the lion trusts the woman, and that's how they build that relationship. The woman also above her head, in a lot of versions, but this can change depending on the deck, she has an infinity symbol, and it's about infinitive infinite patience, infinite time. It's not about rushing. So this is a card that, and it's an image that really talks about how that transformation and that acceptance really doesn't have like a timeline or a deadline. It's more like a process. So it's a card that also talks about a process. This is what I actually wanted to talk about, and it's when it gets interesting, because this idea didn't really start with the tarot in medieval times, in medieval imagination, if we can talk about that. There was no animal more represented than the lion, I think. Like, the lion was everywhere. And the lions rode from manuscript pages to kind of like guarded thresholds and cathedrals, and they were part of flags and armory, and they represented kings. But what did they meant? Like, what did they mean for people? So according to a historian named Nigel Harris, the medieval lion had 5 symbolic identities, which is the threatening lion, the Christian lion, the noble lion, the sinful lion, and the clement lion. These are 5 versions of the same animal. So you have to think that it was very important for people at the time, and it kind of felt like terrifying and sacred at the same time. In early Christian writings, accounts of the Desert Fathers show lions being helped, cured, and tamed by holy men, armed with only the love of Christ, right? So with the lion seen as the symbol of this instinct-bound wildness of nature, right? So it's, again, tame not by force, but by love and patience. So by that relationship. And that image is almost identical to the strength card. And 1,000 years apart, the same idea occurs. The lion inside of you, it's not the enemy, right? It's your wildest, most honest self. And it's kind of like you have to respond to it with gentleness and not violence. Why am I talking about the lion so much? In the tapestry that I made, previously we talked about the girl, and it's a girl that it's facing a lion, and the lion is kind of like in this very aggressive manner, let's say. And the reason why I started doing tapestry is because I was looking for a material that allowed me to create a language of my own to talk about grief. Previously, I used to work with ceramics. I was a ceramist. I am a ceramist, really, because I still do ceramics. But when I started my master's, I kind of started asking questions about what I wanted to talk about, which is grief and death. And in that conversation with myself and with my tutor and with people around me, I realized that even though ceramics is a material that I love, I don't think it's going to help me kind of create that symbolism as much as I wanted. Part of my thesis, and the reason why I started my thesis and the core idea of it, comes from the fact that my dad passed away 7 years ago. I think dealing with grief is a very complicated feeling. It's a very complicated process. But right now I feel like I want to talk about it more, and I want to show people what I lived, and also kind of like the grief that happened when he was sick and then after he passed away, right? Again, why am I talking about the lion so much? Before he passed away, my dad left behind some writings of meditations that he made while he was very sick. And in those writings, he talks about how we as humans are lion tamers, and that the lions are our emotions, which I think it's beautiful. And it's also like, it kind of makes me emotional, like to think, because he in those writings kind of like talks to us meaning my mother, my sister, and myself. And so he says like we are lion tamers, and the fear, the anger, the grief, the love, that's too big to fit anywhere. It's very beautiful to think about all of these emotions as creatures, as like living beings, and at the end of it, lions. And the point of it, and why I think it's related to the lion in the tarot and the lion in medieval times, is that you don't silence them or you lock them away, is that you learn how to be in the room with them. You learn their weight. You learn everything about them until you earn their trust, right? And I've been stitching this tapestry for months now, and the image the biggest image in the tapestry is a lion in front of this little girl, which kind of starts making sense if you watch that video. And I didn't pick that image because of the tarot specifically. I didn't pick it because of medieval iconography. I picked it because of my dad, because of what he said. But then I started pulling that thread a little bit more, and I found out that the idea that he talks about, that your emotions are lions and that you have to tame them with patience, with love, with trust, and not by force, that idea has been in paintings and cathedrals and manuscripts and tarot cards for centuries. So what I mean is, like, of course he wasn't the first to think about this, but he was the first that taught that to me. I don't know if he read it somewhere or he came up with it by himself. Even though I'm still like stitching and the lion is almost complete and this image is almost ready, I just think that it's very beautiful that we understand that creature that sits in front of us, that we think it's so unlike us, it's not a part of us, and it's so hard to even understand. It's actually a mirror of us and how we're feeling. And so I guess what I wanted to do with this tapestry specifically is like how hard it is to sit with the emotions that you're feeling, especially when you're grieving, and especially when you feel like you're too small or too unprepared to handle it. You can kind of think of my tapestry as the image before the tarot card, the child in front of the lion, and then you have the woman next to the lion. So I'm gonna keep stitching because I have to finish, and I hopefully can show you more soon. I'll see you next week with another topic and another video. Bye.